Want awesome tabletop games delivered right to your door? Sign up now for Gamebox Monthly. Learn more at GameboxMonthly.com. Hi, welcome to another episode of Elaborate. As always, I am your host, Jake Lloyd. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with me. We're about 2 months in now. We're learning, we're growing, we're doing it together. I am sitting down today with a fantastic man. He is a musician, he is an entrepreneur, he is a podcast host, and he is the co-founder of Dragon Wagon Radio. Finally sitting down today with my good friend, Zen Zenith. Hi, Zen.
Hey, Jake.
Zen, you are the co-creator of Dragon Wagon Radio.
I am. You know who the other one is?
I do.
I'll give you a hint.
I just said I do.
Oh, okay.
The hint doesn't work.
Well,
yeah.
You really ruined the game.
I did. I ruin everything, Zen. I know that we're still kind of new to each other. Eventually, you'll learn that I ruin everything.
I'm glad we founded a company together, then. It's you.
It's me.
We're the founders, you and I.
Yeah. It was really one of those random things where we met not that long ago. Really?
No. Yeah. It was. I mean, I think it was a Rocky Horror Hipster show, right?
I think we met before that, but that was when we connected.
Right.
I think we might have met at some other Three Clubs thing.
Yeah, totally.
Three Clubs is a popular place here on.
Right. It was at the Interrobang.
Oh yes, that's what it was.
It was Interrobang Live.
Yes. Our fantastic mutual friend Tybee Diskin has a fantastic podcast called Interrobang, and they were doing a live show that you helped play music at. And
I
helped
accompanied.
Shoot. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so that's how we started the whole thing. Anyways, we became internet buddies, as the internet does.
Yep.
Creates buddies.
Yeah, it does.
And you wrote on your wall or something like, "Hey guys, I'm putting together this live concert series podcast. If anybody has any interest in helping, let me know." And the entire month and a half before you posted that, I was in the preliminary stages of planning the launch of Dragon Wagon Radio.
Unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, so I reached out and I was like, "Hey Zen, this is the thing that I'm doing, and if you need help, I could help you and you could help me and we could do things." And then very, very abruptly, for the most part, I mean, we started the company.
We were pretty quick.
We launched our first set of episodes a month later than we anticipated. No, 2 weeks later, not even a month.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
yeah, it might have even just been a week, man.
Really?
I think we were like a week off schedule. Maybe it was 2, but we were pretty good. And it was real quick because it was basically like, "Hey, nice to meet you. We're friends now, and let's do this thing right away."
Right.
Which I mean, honestly, that's how I think any good friend I've made has been something along those lines.
Really?
You know? Yeah, I mean, most of my good friends are musicians, so it's usually like you're usually playing music together before you totally bro down.
Of course,
we're making podcasts. You know, this is our band.
This is our band. Yeah. So you are August Brings,
right? Yeah, I write my own little tunes under the name August Brings. Although I've been thinking lately about just going back to using my regular name.
Yeah. So as a musician, at this point in my life, I'm 34 years old.
Right.
I've let it go. I'm a hobbyist.
Uh-huh.
I used to fancy myself a musician.
Yeah.
Now I fancy myself a musical hobbyist.
You're still a musician. I've heard you play the music.
But I don't. But I no longer play shows. I no longer.
Right.
It's another facet of the things. And I feel like you and I shared this maybe when you were in your 20s. Were you like, I'm gonna do everything?
Yes. I mean, I'm always a little bit all over the place and studying so many different things and you and I have sort of similar skill sets. I'm like a graphic designer, although I think you're a much better graphic designer than I am.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But a graphic design, web design, art. I mean, before I settled on musician, I was like, I'm going to be an actor.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and so we both went through that, and it's incredible to see we kind of came out of it in different ways.
Yeah.
I came out of it concentrating more on the acting and the filmmaking. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you're like, no, I'm playing shows. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'm familiar with the struggle when you stop playing with a band,
right,
and you start doing solo work.
Yeah,
you learned very quickly that like, oh, nobody wants to buy a T-shirt that says Jake Lloyd on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I also, it just feels, I don't know. I worry about like putting out something bad and having my name perma attached to it. You know what I mean? Like if I put it out and it's under August Springs, that's just a band. Like that can go.
So it's an out.
It's kind of. Yeah. But like if I put an album and it's Zen Zenith, like I'm Zen Zenith forever. I mean, not forever. I mean, until I die. But I mean, even after that, then that's associated with me. I mean, it just never goes away. So, but
that's a real cop out, Zen.
It is a cop out.
I feel the person that you are in life is way braver than that guy. I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy at all.
I would never have him on my podcast.
No, that guy's a jerk.
Yeah. I'm leaning back towards the name because the only consistent element in my shows right now is me. You know, so sometimes I'm playing acoustic, sometimes playing with a band. So it seems silly to have a band name because it feels like you're expecting something. And when you're expecting a band.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that when you are sort of just a solo artist who just gets whoever you can play to play with you. And that's what I did when I left New York. I was that guy. Like I had bands in New York and then I moved away from New York and then I would just play shows as like an acoustic opener. And every now and then I'd meet somebody and I'd be like, hey, you want to come play bass on this night? You want to come do this? And it was always still my music and my songs. For me, it was all about like putting it on the name of the poster.
Right.
And, so I went by Ricochet. That's what I called my.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So you had a band name.
Yeah. I did the same thing that you did with August Springs. Okay. And it was essentially like, oh, people bought I would sell merch. I had a hat that said Ricochet on it. I had like patches, that kind of crap. Here's the thing though, Zen. This is the thing that drives me crazy is that of all the names to have to change to a band name, like Zen Zenith, I mean, you know that I assumed it was a fake name when we met. I told you that.
People often do, especially in Los Angeles.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, your last name literally has your first name in it.
It's real easy to.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. I have considered.
What is the genesis of your name, Zen Zenith?
Well,
see what I did there?
That was good. I think. My parents. They gave it to me.
I meant like where did it like? Did they tell you like Zen Zenith? I mean.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, when they got married, they decided to create their own last name from scratch. And so they picked Zenith and decided to then name their first child Zen. Neither
one of them kept their names. They both just created one.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not like an amalgamation of their names. It's just completely nothing. It's
brand new. My dad at the time, I'm not sure if he still would consider himself this, but at the time he was a Taoist.
Okay.
And believed and followed in a lot of like Eastern philosophy. I mean, I was raised as a vegetarian.
Super hippies.
I was raised as a homeschooler. So that was.
I find that second part surprising.
A homeschooler?
Yeah, only because I'm super judgmental.
Right.
And I think that everybody who I've met previously that's homeschooled is a little awful.
So let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind and mean nothing to anyone who's listening to the podcast. Maggie Levin, homeschooler. Russell Henson, her boyfriend, homeschooler.
Whoa. So all of your roommates.
Spike, the drummer for Rocky Horror Hipstro, homeschooler. Anna Laurie, homeschooler.
Yeah. So like your little group of friends, he's naming all people who you roll with.
Right. But it's really funny because we get this reaction a lot. Like I've definitely been in situations where it'll be me, Maggie, Russell, Anna, and one other person in the room. And then that one other person's like, oh, they'll discover one of us is homeschooled.
Right.
And they'll be like, oh, that's weird. That's so weird. All the homeschoolers I know are weird. Yeah. And then suddenly they're like, oh, I'm the only one who's not.
They all start raising their hands.
Yeah. It's like a horror movie. Like, oh no, they've got everyone. It's just me. So yeah, homeschoolers sort of get a bad rap, I think, but obviously and we all met. The funny thing is, me, Russell, Maggie, a lot of us, we met through as teenagers. I've known all those guys since we were teenagers, and we all went to homeschool camp together, which is where I met Maggie and Russell and Spike. We were all part of the same homeschool group in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we are all homeschooled.
So they're essentially your high school friends.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
You just happen to not all go to a high school.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That's bizarre. But
did you know that?
No, I had no idea. And, and all of a sudden everything makes sense. So, but going back to your parents and this name that they came up with, where did the word come from? Zenith.
Well, Zenith means peak or apex. And I mean, they just liked The sort of like child rearing philosophy of my parents was to create people who were free thinkers and were unique, people
Right.
who were individuals. And so naming us was part of that.
And with that said, your siblings?
So I'm Zen Zenith, and then my siblings are Mystical and Celestial. Those are my sisters. And then I have a younger brother named Freedom. So Freedom, Mystical, Celestial, and Zen.
And that's everybody? There's not like a John at the end there somewhere?
Well, the funny thing is I have two half siblings.
Oh.
One of the half siblings, her name is Sola, also unusual. And then I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
And his name is Lee.
Oh, okay. So like before.
Yeah. Before my dad came along.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Well, it's kind of telling. I feel like that speaks to like the artist in you, obviously. Like
Sure.
that had to give birth to sort of all of your creativity as a kid. No?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that myself and many of my homeschool compadres ended up in creative fields, So, but yeah, I think the name helped. I mean, yeah, but and just getting back to the band thing, you're certainly not the first person to suggest that my name is a good artist name.
Even if you just lose Zen.
Right.
Zenith, like
Yeah.
being booked as Zenith on something is still you.
My friend Jared Milos, he's a musician in the Bay Area, gives me a very hard time about using August Springs. He's like, your name is Zen Zenith. How can you pass that up? That is your band name.
Right. So when did you start playing music? Did you start playing music in high school / homeschool?
Yeah, I started playing in homeschool. I started playing music kind of late. I started when I was 14 when I started playing guitar. No, not even. I was 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is kind of late for that.
Yeah, usually, I mean, I'm a music teacher too, and most of my students start music at like 8.
Right. Yeah, I think I was like, how old are you in middle school? You try to figure like probably if you graduate at 18, that's 4 years. 14 is high school, so I was probably about 11. I think I got my first guitar like into middle school maybe.
Right.
So I was probably about 10 or 11 when I started playing.
Yeah.
But much like your very generous compliments of me earlier as a graphic designer, you're a way better guitar player than me.
Thank you.
So there we go. Did you find that like music was a way to like find friends that you like? Let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this. Like this
Totally.
is maybe I'm being an asshole here. An assumption that you didn't have friends because you were homeschooled. I just made that idiot assumption. But
well, I mean, certainly when you're homeschooled, making friends is something you have to put effort into.
Yeah.
It's not something that just But my parents were pretty good about getting me around other kids.
Did you have like a type of block where there were lots of kids growing up, that kind of thing? Like,
no, we like went to every once in a while I'd go to like a class or something, but it would be something self-directed where I was like, I want to take this class, and they'd like send me. I'd meet friends that way. But we also had
when you say class, you mean like I took like community center or something?
Yeah, like I go to I was taking like some community college classes when I was like 15.
Oh, wow.
Just because I was interested in doing it.
I didn't know that they would let you do that.
Yeah, you can totally do that if you're homeschooled. I like I said, I went to homeschool camp, summer camp, and I made a lot of friends that way. And then I also we had homeschool groups that we'd like meet every week and hang out. And so, but just to get to your music question, a group of us, including my friend Russell and my friend Spike, were part of that group, and we started playing music together. And so, music, I really did get into music because it was the first art form I came across that required collaboration, at least at the time. And that's not really how music is so much anymore, which is a bummer to me.
Also, I mean,
but
that could also just come from the music that you were listening to and wanted to
play.
Of
course. Yeah. I wanted to be in a rock band,
Yeah.
I had thought about being a writer. I'd thought about being an actor, and like, especially stuff like writing and art. It's like that. Those are very solitary activities. And music really appealed to me because of the just social aspect of it. So a lot of, we had our homeschool group, and then like on the weekends, we'd have band practice. We'd get together and play.
What did your parents do?
My dad has a PhD in computer science.
Okay.
And when I was growing up, my mom was the stay-at-home parent, especially because
she was the homeschooler. Right.
And now my mom works for Apple, so it's all computer stuff.
Gotcha. So you have friends through classes, and you're playing music.
Yeah.
Like at any point, are your parents like pushing you to do it? Are they,
No, and okay, so and just to get like super deep onto this a little bit, so what I did wasn't even technically called homeschooling.
Okay.
What I did was something that's called unschooling. Have you ever
All
heard
right.
of
Now
unschooling?
all right. Now I feel like you're just making stuff up.
No, it's real. So unschooling. So here's the difference. So when you're homeschooled, it's like school at home, right? You have a curriculum. I mean, every homeschooler, every unschooler is different because
of course,
it's
every parent is different.
Yeah, exactly. So but homeschooling generally is when you still have some structure, right? And you still have expectations, and you still have all this stuff.
Okay.
Unschooling is completely self-directed. So the role, again, totally varies from family to family. Some families are more hands-off than others. But generally, my thought on it, as someone who was raised as an unschooler and like has worked with unschoolers and stuff like that, is that the role of an unschool parent is to guide your kid. So, as I was growing up, I learned things on my own a lot. I actually taught myself how to like code websites on my own and do graphic design on my own when I was like 13, 14.
Right on.
But my parents also encouraged me in this stuff.
Right.
So they'd be like, hey, check this out. Like I remember sitting down with my dad and like we had like encyclopedias, and he'd like bust out the encyclopedia and we'd like check it out and read it together. And I remember, if I ever had like something that became an interest, my parents would be like, great, let's get you classes in that. So like guitar, it was like, I'm interested in guitar. Great, let's get you guitar lessons. So it wasn't like you don't have instruction and you don't go to school or don't do classes and stuff like that, but you only do it if you have an interest in it.
Right.
And that's also not to say that your parents won't expose you to things that you aren't immediately interested in,
Right.
but they're not going to force you to do anything.
So what about, I have to ask, so
Yeah.
What about literally basic studies like history and math and science?
So math and English are really easy because people just learn those naturally.
Right,
like it seems like something that you have to be taught, but like the truth is like I was reading books on my own by the time I was 4 years old.
Right.
Like novels.
Wow.
Like I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when I was 4,
That's all right.
Like
All right.
But that's just and it wasn't, I didn't study it. My dad would read to me, and I was at some point I wanted to do it on my own, so I just picked it up and started figuring it out.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I think, and that's the advantage of unschooling, is that you learn the ability to teach yourself things.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And so things like, the truth is my science isn't that great,
Okay.
but I have a natural interest in science.
Right.
But I also have never done anything that has required me to have that
Of course.
information.
Yeah.
And if I did, I could certainly go learn it.
Sure.
So,
Were you ever was there ever any resentment towards your parents for not putting you in school?
No, I've been always really gung ho about being an unschooler.
Really?
Yeah. Like when I found the unschool camp, that I like met Maggie
Right.
at and stuff like that. I was like immediately like, oh, this is like, I suddenly understood, oh, there's a community. Like I understand the philosophy behind this. I'm like really into it.
Right.
And I've actually worked at that camp since then. So I'm still, and I
Still
actually
involved?
have,
Where is this camp?
it's in Oregon. It's called Not Back to School Camp.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm actually working there this year. It's going to be the first time I've worked there in 3 years. But I like,
And I'm assuming it's the kind of camp that people come from all over the country to.
exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So people come from all over the country, and a lot of the people who are on staff are people that I went to the camp with now.
Oh, right. So like the students
Yeah.
become the teachers,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like me going is like, it's really fun because I get to sort of reconnect to like the unschool community.
What do you do there? Do you just teach music?
So I run workshops and projects, and like, because it's an unschool camp, there's nothing that's mandatory. So but we like have a bunch of workshops that are staff led. We have projects that are, I say nothing's mandatory, but there is like a mandatory morning and evening meeting to make sure people aren't dead.
there's just your mandatory head count. is
Yeah.
essentially
Well,
what it
and
is.
also, and there's also a mandatory like morning advisor meeting, which I'm an advisor at the camp. So I like have a group of 14 teenagers that I like check in with every morning, and
Gotcha.
So
do you think that it's a much more emotionally connected experience?
oh yes, yeah, for sure. And I would never. I think public school is really important. Like I think like having it as a society is like crucial, because the truth is I was like privileged to be an unschooler, because
Yeah.
it's like you have to have a parent who can stay at home.
True.
So you have to be making that kind of money, and the truth is a lot of the unschool, especially families that I run into are, middle class or higher.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Well,
it's like,
it's interesting that you can acknowledge that. Do you find that a lot of other unschoolers don't acknowledge that? So you think people are kind of take it for granted?
there are definitely some unschoolers, I think, who like, just like you're kind of like making fun of homeschool kids. It's like there's definitely the flip side of that. If you're homeschooled, you're like, oh my God, the sheep public school kids,
right.
like the like another brick in the wall kids,
right,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like the drones over there
right.
or whatever.
Blinking in unison.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like there's definitely, I think, a little bit of that sentiment, but generally unschoolers are pretty accepting people. And I think most people do understand that they're in a place of privilege. I would never advocate that everyone should unschool. Right. And that's actually, part of unschooling is like, if you're an unschooler and you're like, I want to go to public school, you should go to public school. That's sort of the point. Is
right.
You do what you want to do.
Interesting.
But
with that said, I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here. Like, what kid, what like 9-year-old
right.
is going to be like, what I do,
right.
Especially because one could argue that, like, here's the thing: is you can't blanket any opinion of unschooling, it sounds like, or homeschooling, because it's very predicated on that specific parent.
Right. Totally.
And I'm sure that there's plenty of people who are unschooled or homeschooled. I like how I'm throwing this term around like I've heard of it before an hour ago. Anybody who was those things, if they were those things underneath an awful parent,
right,
there's a good chance they might have some serious dependency issues or like, I could see that leading to sort of being those people who don't like to go too far, in any direction away from their parent / teacher or whatever.
Yeah, there's certainly that. And I mean, the thing that I worry about with unschooling is that, there's just not a lot, it's really important for kids to have other adult mentors in their life that aren't their parents.
Right.
And
you're speaking to the choir for that. That's my entire childhood, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my, dad wasn't around.
Right.
My mom, who I love to death, just was working to support, and she
right.
So literally, that I am a firm believer of that whole "it takes a village" cliche.
Yes, me too.
Between neighbors, parents, like the neighborhood parents, aunts, uncles. I mean, I've spoken about the coven before. I say I was raised by this coven of women. I totally get that. Yeah. Absolutely.
So the thing I worry about is like who checks in. Right. That's the thing is like. Because you're right, it's unschooling can only be as good as the people involved in it,
or as the parents,
really, and so
you can never blame a kid. Like no kid,
no, of course,
any kid's behavior. Yeah, some people might be predisposed to act a specific way or to have a specific personality, but regardless of you can look at it sort of the same way with religion. Like why it's hard for people to question religion because it's the thing that their parents bestowed on them for their entire childhood. So it's sometimes it's hard to even question it, not necessarily not believe or anything like that, but simply, and it could be the same thing with, with private school or personal schooling, I guess.
Right. Yeah, totally.
But you never think you had any problems with that?
No. My parents did a pretty good job of like getting us. I mean, I had lots of good adult mentors growing up.
And also something that just dawned on me was your siblings, all of your siblings.
Right.
Well, you guys were all unschooled.
Yes.
So you were together a lot then.
Yeah. And and we're all really close.
So see, I guess in my head for the past however long we've been chatting, in my vision, it's like just you know what I mean? Like
no,
during
that
the
would
days.
be terrible. But that would have been awful.
But yeah, I completely forgot about the siblings. So Freedom and Celestial and
Mystical.
Oh
yeah, we hung out, man. We hung out. Yeah. I mean, and the thing I wanted to say too is like I was really gung-ho about the unschool thing. I was never resentful. But Mystical actually really was.
Oh,
she really wanted to be the normal kid.
And you're the oldest of the bunch, correct?
Yeah.
Other than the one Lee, the really
yeah. I'm the oldest. Mystical's the second oldest. So she always wanted to go to school, and we also she didn't want to be vegetarian. She wanted to eat meat.
Right.
She
was the normal one.
We didn't
say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and she we didn't celebrate Christmas because my parents didn't believe in like supporting a Christian holiday when we weren't Christian. So like that was another thing that Mystical was kind of upset about. She really wanted to celebrate Christmas. The funny thing is Mystical is now the only sibling I have that has kids, and she's homeschooling them.
So that gets to what I was thinking about before was, would you unschool or homeschool your children?
That's actually, I think it's non-negotiable. Actually,
really, you have to do it.
That would be a deal breaker. I think.
Like, in which way? I'm sorry, I'm not reading your face properly.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I just mean that like, if I was gonna have kids, I would have to homeschool them.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't public school them?
No. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, simply the person I was with would have to make a real good argument for it. But I'd be open to listening.
So here we go. I'll give you that argument.
Yeah.
The reason I'll do that thing that everybody loves where I'm going to tell you what you're thinking, which is a thing that, I've lost many potential girlfriends over.
Tell me what I'm thinking.
You want to raise your kids the way that you were raised. You want to give them a similar childhood experience. Okay, so I'm your potential spouse. I want to give my kids my childhood experience.
Yeah, no.
I feel the same way, not just about school, but like I literally tell people, like if I had kids, I would do everything I can to get back to Long Island.
Yeah.
Like I would want to raise my kids on Long Island because I want to raise my kids in the type of environment that I was raised. With that said, that place has changed quite a bit since I lived there.
Yeah.
Or since I was a child, I should say. So it might not even be that same experience. But I think we romanticize our childhoods, all of us.
Totally.
And
100%.
So a part of it is that, but.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here's what I'll say to that is that, first off, obviously, if I'm with someone and we're like thinking about having kids, I'm going to listen to their opinion.
Obviously, yeah.
I'm not going to be so boneheaded as to, but I will say that out of all the issues that come up when you're like in a really serious relationship, that is the one I feel most strongly about that I would argue for.
Sure.
What I guess what I would just say to it is I think I could probably make a convincing argument.
Right.
Like I think because it's not. I hear what you're saying about like you want to raise your kids as you were raised. There's lots of ways that I was raised that I would never inflict upon my kids.
Ditto. I get that.
100%. It's not about
totally.
And then the other part of it too is like not to like, I don't want this to come across as like I know better or whatever, but I also have been a teacher for over a decade and have worked with the unschool community through this camp. So I like, it's not like, it's like I have like studied the philosophy and like sort of understand where it's coming from and what the benefits are and blah, 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 blah.
That's true. You do. I mean,
I'm not just coming from, I'm coming from an informed place, I guess.
It would be different if you were somebody who inversely was public schooled and was just sort of catching on to a fad of unschooling or.
Yeah. And certainly like with my sister like sent her kids to school at first and then they didn't like it. And so she pulled them out and that's how they kind of tested. And like one of them seems like maybe it would be better if they went to school. So she thinks she's going to send them back, so it's like, it'd be, I that's what I would like to do is like see what's best for each kid, and
what a thought that would be.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. It's really kind of fascinating to me. Like I can't, when you hear stories of a different lifestyle, you automatically try to visualize your lifestyle as that lifestyle or your life as that lifestyle. I could not imagine a world. Well, I wouldn't be able to be unschooled or homeschooled.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Situation.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious. What were you about to? Because a lot of people, when I talk about this, always go, "Well, I couldn't have been unschooled or homeschooled." What was your reason?
Oh, well, I couldn't be because like I said, Dad wasn't around and Mom was working. Okay. So literally,
that's legit. Totally legit.
Technically, I was sort of unschooled in the sense that I could cut school all the time and nobody found out about it.
Right.
Because nobody was home.
Right.
Oh my God, Mom, if you're listening, do you have any idea how many times I used to go to the corner and wait for you to leave for school?
Oh man.
Wait for you to leave for work rather, and then just go back home and just skip school. Oh, I did it so many times.
What would you do when you were home?
Exactly. Like I would most of the time going, geez, I wonder what my friends would do. You're a kid. I would play video games probably, or whatever. Wait for everybody to get out of school, which was stupid. Yep. I was a weird kid because I was a really good kid, except for like I did those sorts of things. I did like these sort of victimless bad things. Like I never would destroy anybody's property or I never like stole anything. I always had good grades in school.
Right.
But I also simultaneously was like, I don't want to go to school today and just on a whim do that kind of silly shit.
Right.
But anyways, I'm really interested though in sort of where the artist came from in that sense, because I feel like personally, all of my artistic interests kind of came from school.
Interesting.
They all came from the friends I made in school. They came from the classes I took in school. Like like with the exception of, and I think I've talked about them before on the show, and I definitely will talk about them in the future quite a bit. The Fishers were a family that lived across the street from me.
Mm-hmm.
and I got a lot of who I am from Chris and Danny Fisher, the two older brothers of that family.
Yeah.
They were both a couple years older than me. And like, that's why I listen to the music I listen to. That's why I like comic books. Like a lot of what I came from them, but that's my interests, not my, my practices. I feel like really school is what gave me the love of playing music, and what gave me the love of actually drawing and of painting and doing all of those things and acting. How did you get into acting if you didn't have school plays?
Well, it's funny, you're talking about all this stuff, and I get it, but I picked up all that stuff from, I think in the same way you did, just from different places. So like when I was a kid, I was really into drawing comic books because my dad loved comic books. So we'd talk about comic books. We'd go to comic book shops together. He'd like buy comic books. We'd sit and like read comic books together. And so there was a whole year where I drew a comic book every week. The superhero comic book I created called The Planet.
Oh, I love that you remember the name of it.
Yeah, it was The Planet. His sidekick was Superstar, and his main villain was Dr. Mad.
Wow.
Yeah, I did that. I'm homeschooled, so I'm at home all the time, and I have all the time in the world. So I drew a comic every week for a year.
So you got that from your dad?
And then music. Let me think. So music, I got from going to this camp. I went to the camp, and there were a bunch of kids who played guitar. There was this one guy who played guitar, Adam DiCarlo, and I saw him play guitar, and I was like, I want to play guitar.
So that was your first musical endeavor, was guitar?
Yeah. But even as a kid, I remember playing. I had a Casio keyboard with the demos.
Oh, right.
You could hit the demo button and press keys to change the chord.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so I do that and make up songs.
Of course.
Did
your parents ever urge you to actually learn piano or learn a musical instrument? I feel like that's a kind of a thing.
Guitar was the first thing. You know what's funny actually is my dad bought me a guitar when I was actually I think I must have been 9 or 10, and I just was not into it. And it wasn't until
unique.
It wasn't until I saw this other guy play guitar that I was like, okay, I want
to go dust that off. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, you're right. There's no situation where I didn't get into something because I saw other people doing it.
Gotcha.
I
guess that's the thing, is that we're whether you're in school or you're not in school, you're still going to live a life, and you're still going to get exposed to all the things that are in the universe, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
You still are out there. Learning doesn't just happen in the classroom, as they say.
So jumping ahead a little bit here in the story of Zen, I want to talk more about music as an outlet, because I feel obviously as a kid you probably listened to music and you liked music and you went on to play music.
Yeah.
But at some point, in order to take it seriously, in order to be no, this is going to be what I'm going to strive to do.
Right.
It has to provide you with some sort of severe emotional benefit.
Oh yeah.
And
did
that for you? Did music come from relationships? Did it come from Because for me, it was all, when I was very young, it was all family based.
Oh,
for me, all of my earliest songs were about daddy issues and were about were about family stuff, and that's sort of what I found it felt good to play and write songs about things. And then I kind of evolved into writing songs about, once you got old enough to have girlfriends and have feelings in that sense, then I started graduating to that kind of shit. But what was it for you?
I would say that almost all of, everything that I've done as a teenager that I got into was all about building community. Okay. And that came about, again, I loved music because it was collaborative and I had to be around other people to play it. But honestly, it came about because my parents got divorced when I was right when I was getting into music, really. I mean, I guess I got a little.
They got divorced when you were still in the school years.
Yeah, they got divorced. I mean, they probably got I don't really remember, but I was 13 or 14 or something.
Must have really hit you really hard. Okay.
It did hit me really hard, actually, and because I was a teenager, and it's we're homeschooled, so it's family's everything.
Yeah.
And so.
I guess at that point, at that age in the homeschool unschooling thing, you're a little bit freer, I guess, right? Because you're a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So did your mom stay the person who stayed with you, or was at that point were you a little bit more just we're living life now?
My mom, Yeah, for a long time, my mom was the main person. I mean, again, we're unschooled, so we weren't homeschooled.
Right.
So it wasn't.
Yeah, of
it
course.
wasn't like there was someone who had to be teaching us all the time.
Yeah, true.
But my mom, I don't totally remember the situation, but my mom definitely was still the stay-at-home person for a little while,
Right.
Before she got a job, and I think that kind of happened once we all grew up a little bit.
What did other kids in the neighborhood think of you and their parents? Sorry, I just thought about that.
They
generally, like, were you like, oh, stay away from the Zeniths? Those kids aren't in school.
No, we got along with our neighbors.
Yeah.
They would hang out. I never lived on a block where there were kids my age, so it was mostly my younger siblings that were hanging out with the neighbors. But yeah, man, so like my parents getting divorced, I think was because of my parents getting divorced, I went through a phase where I hard pushed away from family, where I was like, fuck you guys, everything you're doing is all screwed up. Right. I'm gonna strike out on my own. Yeah. And like suddenly I'm someone who has like I have a lot of really close friends.
Honestly, the fact that all the people that I know you mentioned earlier, learning that you've known them for this long now shows that, because I spoke in a previous episode actually with Justin Baker just last week, who's a friend of yours as well.
Yeah.
We talked about how like certain people just have those friends that they've had since forever.
I'm that guy,
and we're not those guys at all. But so you are that guy who you're like, oh yeah, these are and to this day in your 30s, they're still your roommates, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, right.
They're your family.
Yeah, no, totally.
You're probably like Kamala married to like 6 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I like Russell is probably the best example right now. He's my roommate. I've known him since he was 11.
Wow.
And we're both in our 30s now.
Wow.
So yeah, so
it's kind of great.
It's great. I love it. Like I love having, and the great thing is now I'm close to my family too.
Right.
So it's like, it all came back around. But that was what got me into music, was just, it was an escape from my family. To be honest, I liked music when I was a kid, but I didn't really get into listening to music. Like I didn't go out and buy albums until I got into playing music.
Oh, interesting.
Which is, I'm sort of
it's backwards.
I'm a little bit of an anomaly, because I feel like a lot, especially guitar teachers, tend to be very into like classic rock and like, and
they're Rush fans, and
they're like AC/DC fans, and they're like Led Zeppelin fans, and they're Beatles fans, and whatever. And I like missed all that, and my entry point was Weezer. So like I didn't really. The bands that I like dived into were all 90s bands. So that's like my earliest point of reference for music, which is now I'm in all those retroactively. Now I'm in all those bands.
Because I think that's sort of the most common musical journey is probably music is like school. It's like when you're in grade school is top 40.
Right.
Music is there. I have it hand fed to me. This is the music I need. And in the top 40 category is some important music. Is like your Michael Jacksons.
Oh, Michael Jackson. Yes.
Yeah, you mean like it's
that was one of the ones.
So depending on where you are in the country, like in Long Island, it's like Billy Joel's. Depending on the Eagles, if you're in certain that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then like you get to high school and you think that now you've become fringe. Yeah. Because maybe the lyrics start getting a little bit more foul and the music starts getting maybe a little bit heavier or edgier or whatever. Yeah. It gets a little bit more of whatever your style is, but it's still on the radio. Yeah. So it's like, oh, I'm really rebelling now, but you're not, in the same way that in high school we all think we know. Yeah. And then like you go to college, and that's when you're like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna get like a little bit more refined. Yeah. Now I'm gonna like learn about like I'm going to start taking history classes. Now I'm going to learn about stuff that came well before the top 40. Right. As well as, what's the new best contemporary shit? Right. And much like in my real college experience, that's where I dropped out, which is why me musically. That
happens to a lot of people. But, they like stop after college.
Right.
Like those are the bands I listen to now forever.
But I feel like at some point in that, in that musical schooling experience, you pick up a guitar or a piano or whatever it is that you pick up to do. You pick it up because of those things, but then having that makes you then explore. Right. But I feel like you just picked it up and explored. Like you didn't even have the...
Right. That was weird. Yeah. No, it was kind of a weird backwards way of doing it. And the thing that always like appealed to me, I'm basically an emo kid through and through. Yeah. Like I'm like Warped Tour kid. Like that's my jam.
Okay. Listen, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah.
The Dashboard Confessional Unplugged album will live on my iPhone forever.
Yeah.
Because even though it's hard for me to listen to the actual albums now.
Right.
But if you ever want to remind yourself of what feelings felt like as a teenager,
Oh yeah,
the Dashboard Confessional Unplugged album, it's him and then a room.
Oh, I've heard it.
Full of
I listen to that shit all the time.
Like what, 30 to 100 teenagers singing every word louder than he does in perfect unison. Oh man, so I get it. I'm an emo kid too. It's a facet, but
that was my scene for sure. I and honestly, some of those bands, I'm like a pretty emotional 30-year-old. So like some of that shit I still relate to be totally honest. And like, especially like, I listen to like Bright Eyes and Cursive and like I said, Weezer and the Get Up Kids and like, some of it has stood the test of time better than other things, but some of it still holds up. But yeah, I was angsty, and that's what got me into music. I like wanted to rebel, and I wanted to like sing my feelings and like wanted to be part of something.
Right. So that was where to get back to it. And I'm learning about myself as more I do these shows. Is I jump around conversation topics like crazy.
I know. Well, you know what you're running into right now is I'm also a podcast host, so I keep bringing it back because that's my instinct. I'm like, but we don't have to.
No, but that's fine. That's fine. What I want to get back to is the fact that you said that your lyrical content and sort of like the outlet for you was that like building the community. Which is ironic that you say you felt like you weren't without as a unschooler when all of a sudden you were searching for community. We can read into that if you want to or not, but
no, sir, definitely through music is like how I found my community. I mean, like to this day, the people I'm closest to, and I think are like my closest tight knit community are like my music friends. Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And so
those are the people I relate to. That's like my tribe.
What do you got out of performing music now?
What I get out of performing music is the same thing I've always gotten out of performing music, which is I get, performing in general is a thrill for me. Like I like performing on stage, regardless of whether it's playing music or not, actually.
Right, of course, yeah.
I just like doing that.
You're a ham.
Yeah, classic entertainment industry at Los Angeles person.
Yeah.
But the other part for me is the community building aspect still. Like that's why I started the house show. Right. Like I like being the guy who's like put the show together and like brought people together.
Well, I mean, I think this is we're now coming real full circle because I think this is how we started this whole thing.
Yeah,
was I think that's how you and me clicked so much. Was that like when you posted that thing about wanting to do a show? We really don't have any benefit of helping each other, and with the exception of creating the community.
Right.
And that's the whole point of the Dragon Wagon Radio podcast network is simply creating a community. None of the shows on the network get anything out of any other show other than just doing some cross promotion.
They're all pretty different.
Yeah. It's that whole thing of just kind of creating a community and trying to kind of succeed as a family, that kind of stuff. But the reason why I ask what you get out of playing now obviously comes from my own shit. I
was about to ask, what do you get? And
that's the thing is I don't play anymore. Do
you feel like you're missing something?
Oh God, I miss it so much, especially when I go and see live music now.
Right.
Which wasn't always the case because for years I would go see live music and I would be like, oh yeah, that's fun. I remember this and.
You felt cynical about it?
I think that's what it was. Maybe it was because I felt like it was still kind of freshly burnt.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that just comes from fucking moving to Los Angeles because I am self-admittedly not I said it earlier, like I am a musical hobbyist. I am not, despite the fact that I love recording music, I love playing and writing songs, I have no expectations for any of it ever. I am not great. I am a mediocre singer at best. That's on an exceptional day. Do I hit mediocre? That's like my peak. That's my zenith.
Hey.
And so, with that said, when you move out to LA, you come to the place where literally the most talented people in the world are. Right. And I am like, oh, I have no right. It's not even about whether I want to. I literally don't have a right to try to get booked any show in LA because the talent out here is just so incredible. And I go watch other musicians play songs. And I'm like, I can't write a song. I watch them sing. I go, I can't sing. I watch them play guitar. I go, I can't play guitar.
No, there's something like sad and joyless about that to me a little bit. Like,
sorry.
No, not you. Just like the thing you're expressing about like, no, I mean, part of it too, it's hard for me to hear you say that you like are mediocre, yada, yada, because I'm a teacher. Right. So like my instinct is to be like, no, man, like you're a musician. It doesn't matter. Like, fuck it. Well,
let me preface that. Like, I'm never gonna stop.
Right.
I'm never gonna stop playing and recording my own music, and like, it's not like I'm realistic.
Yeah.
I still really love it,
Right.
and I'm not gonna let that prevent me from. Now, here's the thing. Yes, I have let it prevent me from attempting to get gigs because
right.
It's just a headache as it is. With that said, like, it's just you and I already spread ourselves too thin, so you know what that's like. Like,
Yep.
It's one more thing that I'm just going to be trying to do.
Totally.
And, yeah. So I've made a choice to not actively seek gigging. But with that said, I'll never stop recording and writing music.
Right.
I just have a very low expectation for it.
And that's fine. I think like what I meant when I said it's like feels joyless and sad is just like that you just keyed into something that I don't like about Los Angeles music, which is, and I'm sure some people are going to hear this and be like, what are you talking about, Zen? That's bullshit. But like generally, I feel like people don't play music for fun here enough. And
wow, yeah.
You know what I mean? And like everyone is so fucking serious about it. And because they're so serious about it, I also feel like I don't see as much like innovation as I would see other places.
Wow, that's
you know what I mean? Because like part of like, being creative is having fun. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And taking chances because there's nothing riding on it,
right.
And like that's when you like create the music where you're like, oh shit, like that's something new and different. But when you're like worried about like my image and like I have to like get my record deal or whatever, everyone tends to like put themselves in this box.
Right.
I just like, I mean, I know that there's pockets of LA out there where that's not the case and people are having fun and doing cool stuff. And I've certainly run into that. But I think that first impression you had is certainly the first impression LA gives.
Right.
And I think that sucks. Like,
and I think that it's something that I think a lot of people deal with when they move to Los Angeles or New York or any of the big creative cities. I feel like for me, the thing that I miss the most about music is that moment that you have with another person as you play it, and then it just works for that one moment. And it's sort of a mainstream movie nowadays that people, at least other musicians I know, sort of like dog on it, but I still love The Swell Season, one of my favorite groups. And
it's such a great movie.
And Once is one of the most perfect movies ever made.
It's great.
And it's incredible to me because as non-actors, the moments in the music shop when they first play Falling Slowly, the moment where she plays those first couple of chords and hits that first harmony.
Yep.
Glenn Hansard looks up at her and he smiles. And and she's not looking at him. She's still watching the chart. She's reading his lyrics, I think, whatever it is. And he smiles. And I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Like, he smiles at her. And it's that moment. Oh, I missed that moment of just like, oh shit, this is good.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I miss more than anything about.
Yep. There's nothing better than that moment when you're collaborating with someone and that happens. And you're just like, oh shit, and you did
it's
it.
Fun.
That's sick. No, it's so good. That's like one of the things that's hard about playing on my own sometimes, or working on songs on my own, is you don't get to have those I mean, sometimes you do, but it's not quite the same. You like struggle for those moments. Whereas like when someone else brings it, you're like, oh, magic.
Zen, will you allow me to play one of your songs on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
All right. So that's going to be great.
Okay.
I'll let you pick which one. You'll send me the file.
It's going to be Bones and Gratitude.
I'll include it on this show.
Yeah.
Zen, we are what, 2.5 months?
2.5 months of Dragon Wagon, baby.
Of Dragon Wagon Radio. It's been great so far. Hopefully we have a lot more stuff going on.
5 podcasts. Hopefully we can add more.
Yeah.
And wait, do we have 5?
Yeah,
we have
and
5.
you are the host of 2 shows. Let's really quick. We talked a little bit before about the House Show.
So I'm the host and creator of the House Show, which is a live music podcast. We have bands come on, artists come on. I interview them. They play some songs. It's like being at a house show, an intimate show. Right. But you get to just stick it in your ears and hear it in the privacy.
And I've been at quite a few of them. I've helped produce, and
you co-produce.
It really is a truly unique experience. I love it so much.
It feels, honestly, I'm hella stoked on it right now.
Really?
It feels like my crowning achievement a little bit. I'm as I'm doing it, I'm like, this is good. And I need to keep doing this.
It's a brilliant idea.
Not to
you're getting fantastic artists. I mean, like that's the concern. The concern is always like, oh yeah, who are the people playing on these shows?
Yep.
But there has not been a dud in them yet, and they've been all super unique. You had on remind me her last name, Kendra
McKinley.
Kendra McKinley. I cannot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm madly in love with you, Kendra. Madly. I don't care if you're married, you got a boyfriend. I'm fine with it. Her voice is like a warm blanket that you will just wrap yourself in. She is amazing.
She is a sweetheart.
The last song she did where she sort of jazz scattered a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Miami.
She is so insanely talented.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're getting great guests. I love that show. And I think that show can be really fantastic. And it is just sort of a great thing. And what I love to start doing with that show is like traveling more. And hopefully as a show builds,
I would love to do that too.
As a show builds an audience, like have people in other states offer hosting it. Because again, at the end of the day, it's always in a house. It's literally just in someone's house.
My dream is to take the house show on the road.
Right. It's so good, Zen.
Thanks, man.
So aside from that, you're also the co-host of Dr. Hoodlums.
Aside from being a musician, I'm also a huge nerd.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, now we are. Yeah. I know. I used to be unique in this.
Do you remember when we were the minority?
Yeah, that was awesome. I'd like talk about Doctor Who. No one knew what I was talking about. I'd be like, oh man, I have to go to England to buy Doctor Who toys. Now they're here.
Yeah.
Anyway, Doctor Who is my favorite TV show of all time.
Your life is so hard for you, Zen.
And so the show is basically we watch Doctor Who. Me and my friend Chelsea Christer, who's a filmmaker from San Francisco, which is where I grew up. And her and I deconstruct each episode, and it's really fun. A little bit more of a selective audience. If you don't watch Doctor Who, you're not going to care that much. But if you do, check it out. I mean, it's Chelsea's awesome, and it's nice. Her and I have a good rapport, and so it's fun. Always fun to chat with her. And we actually have been running it since 2014. I think.
Wow.
No. Yeah, 2014, and we just kind of came back for this new season.
Nice.
So we're back at it. Dr. Hoodlums.
Nice. All right. So how do other than all of the podcasts on the network, how do people find you on the internet?
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, which is therealzenzenith.com.
Are there a couple fake ones out there?
There is someone has zenzenith.com already.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a company.
Probably.
It's a real startup company.
It's not an English speaking whatever company it is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they also have Zen Zenith on Instagram. So on Instagram, I'm also the real Zen Zenith.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, as always, please follow me on Twitter at LiquidJake. If you enjoy the show, it is so incredibly crucial to do us a massive favor, and that is to leave us a review on iTunes.
Huge.
That is super important. It helps people find the show. Again, a couple months in, I'm still finding my feet here. I appreciate you listening. And hopefully we will all grow together, and leaving those reviews will help that in such a massive way. Also follow at It's Dragon Wagon on all social media to hear of more of Zen's shows, as well as the other fantastic shows on this very network.
Pretty sick shows going on right now.
Absolutely. So you will be hearing a short commercial, and then you will hear a fantastic song by August Brings, aka Zen Zenith.
That's me.
And I will be unschooling my children.
I'm glad I convinced you.
Thanks again, Zen. Love you, bud.
Yeah, love you too, man.
You guys, you don't get it. I'm sitting here. He's just so handsome. He's got this face and this beard, and his name is Matt Kessler. Matt, you have a podcast.
I do have a podcast. It is called Too Many Records. It is an extension of a YouTube show that existed already called Too Many Records. And it's because I have a lot of freaking records.
What's a lot of records?
I have about 1,500 vinyl LPs, and it's growing by the day.
That's a lot of records.
Yeah, so on the show, I talk about records, I nerd out about music with people, and it's a real good time, so I hope you'll listen if you like tunes.
How do we listen?
You go to iTunes or Stitcher, and you can download it there, or go to toomanyrecords.net.
I have an old Hall & Oates record I'd like to sell you.
Nope.
Trail through these woods, Steps once wild with a plum grow more cautious. That's not to say I haven't tried. Felt your hand here at my side. Before you go, I'll throw away all that's left of you. You display bones and gratitude for those a name who have fallen through. Trace those razor-edged hills through the city skyline. Disengage the clutch, coasted down the other side, where it's sad in me to find that the rush didn't make me feel alive. All battened down, all that's left of this form of life. It's bones and anxiousness that I decided is old and riddled with things I despise. Oh, but what I wouldn't give to take it back. That's not to say I haven't tried. Felt your hand here at my side before you go. I'll throw away all that's left of you. You display bones and gratitude for those names who have fallen through. Those are names who have fallen through. Those are names who have fallen through, fallen through, fallen through, fallen through, fallen through.
It's Dragon Wagon.